And we are live, and welcome to my live stream. For those of you all who don't know me, my name is Michelle, aka the Ignited Teacher. And what I do on this channel is I help math teachers, math interventionists, or a math teacher just like yourself to close learning gaps by providing you with evidence-based and research-based instructional strategies that can be used as early as the next day. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And I'm kind of excited about this live streaming topic because it's all about, are your interventions working? So before I dive into this hot topic, I want to let you know about some of the resources that I have. If you looking for blog posts, you can hop on over to my blog at www.fuelgreatminds.com. That's FUELGREATMINDS.com. Also, I have some pre-recorded workshops on closing the gaps for math, fractions. I also have a redraw right problem solving workshop that I sell that you can check out on my Podia website, where I help you with struggling learners. So those are some resources that I have. If you're interested, hop on over there. Also, I have some digital lesson plans that are that I sell on my website as well. So getting to today's topic, let me pull this thing down because I don't like my head all the way down to the bottom. So, are your interventions working? So, a lot of people, I think a lot of teachers tend to not pay attention to data. Because I know at the end of the year, I always hear teachers saying, "Oh, I thought that they were going to pass." Now, we're talking about pass those standardized tests. One of the issues that teachers ignore is the data prior to the test. If your data is telling you that your students are not, or a student is not making the cut, or at least hitting 70% for those standards or student expectations that you have to teach, your interventions are not working. You can't hope that they work. You can't pray that they work. They're not working. And your data is saying that. And I'm not talking about standardized test data, because I am adamantly against using standardized test prep items to monitor your instructional strategy unless you're prepping the children for state testing. That is it. Now, for regular instructional things, I don't do that. I don't use test prep because test prep items are coded sometimes dually, and they have all these different things that are extra and make a student have to think or overthink themselves. What you're trying to do in intervention is basically get the kids to master the concept. The TEAC and those student expectations for standardized testing are two different things. So that's the first step with your intervention. The second step is, do you have instructional strategies? Because if your data, and I'm going to tell you about map testing. I am not a fan of map testing. As a matter of fact, map tests, they are two totally different tests than what your school district gives. So it's like trying to serve two masters. Map tests, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even pay attention to it. If the kids move, I'm happy. But it's a norm reference test. And all it does is tells you where your kids fall at when within the group of children at that grade level. Why do I care about that? Why do I care where my children fall nationally or with this stupid test? I don't care. What I care about is, are they prepared for the next grade level? Norm reference tests are generally like your SAT. I mean, like, why are we giving map tests? I'm against it. I really am. It supports that drip syndrome, data rich, information poor. Like, that's all it does. And it doesn't help you to move anything. Now, maybe K through 2, but I'm talking about 3 through whatever grade level they give it. I know it just doesn't meet the the need that I have. So, I'm talking about this intervention cycle when we're talking about, are they working? Your data is the first thing. And then after you do that, you diagnose it, you reteach, and then you reassess. Now, in that reteach portion, you have to ask yourself, did it work? And I'm not saying like only look, oh, wrong scene. Only look at what you're doing. I'm saying look at the data for what it is. I'm talking the data that you can use are data sets that you can use are your anecdotal notes, things that you're observing in class. That's what you can use. You can also use um your grades. You can use your small group intervention. Anything that you observe trumps what a child does on a test. So what you have to do is take those two and put them together and come up with a diagnosis or a conclusion as to, is this student actually moving or this student not moving. That's how you can tell. And it's not rocket science, it's just paying attention. Now, districts generally test their kids MOY, BOY, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of year. Real simple. But you need to know if your students are moving beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. And then you need to find out if they're moving before the checkpoint that your district has in place. So, what I use for that is I have an anecdotal set that I sell on my website. I also have a blog posts about using anecdotal notes. I don't think I have any videos on it. I might, but you can check my YouTube channel and see if I have any, but I don't think I have done those. It might be in conjunction with something else. But you need to make sure that your students are moving. In my math intervention group, and if you're also on my website, I have free resources library where I share some things with them. So I think I did, well, this was in the Math Intervention Academy. This past week, I shared about my data wall in my classroom. My data wall is where I list my TEKs, and as the district gives their little district assessments, that's my test prep stuff. The district test prep the kids enough, so I don't have to use test prep items for intervention. It is not, the district only cares about the test. Well, my school district. It only cares about the test. So, at the end of the day, I wouldn't recommend test prep items because it's going to throw your data off, or as I would say, skew your data. But your district, and generally most of them always give like mock tests, and that's when you use that data to see how well the students are doing with test prep items. But please, please, please don't use those for your intervention. You want to use, so for example, let me back up. What you want to use to see if your interventions are working, say for instance, you did a cycle of on fractions or multiplying fractions. You want to see if the children can get them. You need to have some authentic problems for them to use based on the intervention that you have in place. It could be 4 problems, it could be 2, but the student has to be able to do the problems without any assistance from you. That's it. That's all. So it's not rocket science. And also, you need to have whatever those students worked with because you want to see if that intervention worked. Now, one of the things I always see in my students, my tier 1 instruction, they start to do better with that. There's not these hiccups, because I've had students that were real low, but then as I work with them in small group, that tier 1 instruction for them, it got better. And it did. So it's like, wow, my interventions are working. So that's another way that you can tell whether your interventions are working or not. But these are qualitative data points, not quantitative. Qualitative are anecdotal. And so, like, these are things that you report or note, like, to parents. And then I talk about qualitative and quantitative data as the why and the what. Qualitative is the why those numbers look like they do. And the why is the child may not be doing well with the tier 1 instruction. Child may have absenteeism, and it affects all those test prep numbers. But you have to fix the anecdotal part or the why to get those numbers to move. And that's part of intervention. If your interventions are not working, you're not monitoring your progress on what those students are doing. I'm talking about quantitatively and qualitatively. You are going to end up in a surprise mode at the end of the year, because what's going to happen is you can't you don't know where the children are going to fall. I make predictions every year on the students that are going to pass or fail. Every year I make predictions. Every year. And to be honest with you, most of them are almost correct. You always have those surprises. Oh, didn't know he was going to pass. And then some children start doing well at the 19th hour because sometimes it takes time for them to master it. And that's why I have a problem with administrators who are constantly talking about, well, what are you doing for this child? Well, Rome was not built in a day, sir or ma'am. It wasn't. And these children don't move because you have a deadline to where these kids are supposed to learn it. That's not teaching. And they're human beings, not robots. We don't program them. We can only get so much done within the allotted time. But the little time that you're giving, you need to make sure that those interventions are working based on your qualitative and quantitative data points. And to wrap this up, I'm going to give you um one last tip to help you to think about, are your intervention working? You need to think about your strategies that you're using for your tier 1 instruction. So for me, I don't use tricks. Teach the children the foundation. If you're talking about the butterfly method and then you realize you don't understand why the kids are getting it wrong in fractions, that's not that I mean, yeah. That you can't teach tricks and expect the kids to be able to connect it. You have to be able to teach the content. And that goes for you. If you know that your content knowledge is not that great, I just created a beta group. Beta means that it hasn't been released yet. It's in the building stage and you can still join for $7. It's called the Gap Closers. I teach you content for concepts that are hard to teach. like fractions, how to connect them, all those things. It's not template based, it's based on content knowledge. My Math Intervention Academy, I do provide templates with the lessons for different concepts. I do that for that group, but it's a more comprehensive program. But the Gap Closers is for people who need content and don't know how to teach certain things. I provide that based on my experience. And you have to know what type of strategies your students need. You have to, because every strategy does not work for every child. It doesn't. And every group has its own personality. Implementing or teaching a strategy doesn't work will railroad your intervention, which will railroad your data qualitatively and quantitatively. You will be sank if you don't know those instructional strategies. So I hope that these tips give you something to think about. And I guess I'll see you all in my next live stream. Bye bye.